So hopefully you were able to watch my video part 1 and why it is absolutely necessary to do a pre-inspection before you go on the market. In this video, I'm going to share with you the rest of the tips that I didn't have time to cover in the first video, but are super critical to keeping your transaction on time and from going sideways. Let's go. Like the pictures that I have in my hand right now, they're up in the attic, right? I mean, how are you gonna know, Frame? You got sheetrock on it. So when they go up in the attic, number one, if you have a ladder there, they're gonna call it a safety hazard because you're not technically supposed to have a ladder because it compromises the firewall. But they're gonna look for insulation. They're gonna make sure it's properly insulated. And another thing they look at and they take pictures of is rat or mice poop, right? Sometimes they bury themselves in there. So, we would do, if you live near a field, you might want to, you might want to get a rodent inspection. Unless you're hard of hearing, like my husband and my mother, you probably would hear if you had rodents up there, right? They'd be like running around and, you go to take out something out of your pantry and you might have a little nibble on it. I don't know, it could happen. But I can't even tell you, I have seen probably more rat poop than I ever want to see. We have rodents here, right? I mean, we're new buildings. So if you have traps up there, get rid of those traps. Just get rid of the problem. Have somebody that is a professional go in there and make sure there's no rodents. Because then when they bury themselves inside that insulation, that is no fun to get out. And as a buyer, that's scary. I mean, could you imagine, pretend you're the buyer. You want to buy a house with squirrels and they're even worse than rats. You can't hardly get them out. Electrical. We used to have a lot of these old electrical boxes called Zenko, and they are kind of like not safe because people have had their houses burned down. So sometimes they will call an old electrical box and they will say it has to be replaced. And the cost for that is about $2,500 because I've had way too many replaced in my days. And I think the last one was probably about a year ago and it was $2,500. Just make sure they're labeled. Can you just label those darn breakers? I mean, because people want to know that they're properly labeled. Recently, one of my buyers, love him, he came with this little bag and I'm like, that's kind of a nice man bag. And what was in this man bag? He had like a black light looking for pee, urine signs. He's probably been watching too many videos. He also had a tester to test every electrical, plug. And I'm like, wait a minute, don't worry, your inspector's gonna do that. What else did he have? He had a water pressure gauge, and I'm thinking, I should probably have that. But you know what, I'm a realtor. I am not an inspector. I let the inspectors do that, just like I'm not a stager. But I have phenomenal stagers. I rely on them. So obviously it was very important to my buyer, and it was kind of fun watching him. All right, so plumbing. Look under your sinks, people. Is it wet? Do you need to, is it grungy there? I'll tell you, it's kind of scary. It's scary looking under people's sinks. So if it's wet and you have to, you need to fix that. Get a plumber. Get somebody. Maybe that your drain doesn't really drain, but if you put enough hot water in it and Dawn detergent, it's gonna take care of that. So that's definitely important. Now, if you're on septic, and if you have country property, I used to have 22 horses, so I was on septic, I was on well. We always would get our own septic inspection, and guess what? When you get a septic inspection, the only way for them to inspect it is for them to clean it. So most of the time, you're supposed to clean your septic, like every 3 to 4 years. No, actually it could be less. Don't quote me on that. Maybe it's every 2 years, right? Depending on how many people are in the house. So get your septic inspection. You're gonna be in at about $400, $450, and I'll tell you why. Because a lot of times, it's not pretty. I remember this one house, my husband had to bring his tractor because you gotta find the lids, right? There's things called risers, and they're only like a couple $100, and What a riser is you actually can put it on the property where you can see it, where you don't have to dig 4 feet under and try to find the lids, to lift the lids to inspect the septic. And when they do that, I mean, sometimes they pull things out. I mean, this one inspector, when they come to dig, I'm not kidding, it looked like a scene from the Beverly Hillbillies. So they come, they dig, and they usually come from the hills, and you can't get them overnight. It usually takes about a week to 2 weeks to get somebody to dig. Then they got to come back, they have to inspect. So just do it ahead of time. Don't have your back against the wall. You know, and well inspection. You want to have your well inspected. Make sure, you know, that it doesn't have any E. coli. So they'll do a water test. They'll do a GPM, gallons per minute. People, if you're on property, people want to know, what's your GPM? How many gallons per minute? If you're like, you know, I remember I bought my first property, and what a dummy I was, you know, for horse property. The agent told me, because it was a different area that I moved to, that, oh my God, you have great water. It's like 3 to 5 gallons a minute. Well, shoot, when you have 22 horses, that sucks. I used to have to daisy chain a hose from my neighbor all the way up a hill. I think there was 20 hoses down. He would let me get water because we'd run out of water. A good GPM is about 10 gallons or more a minute. And if you don't have that, you need a holding tank, right? 2,500 gallon holding tank. Sometimes they put them in the ground, sometimes you'll see them standing up. But you know, septic and well, that's a big deal. Just get it done, because then you don't have to wait. I mean, you can wait a month for these things. And then when they do the well test, you're gonna be out of the house for at least, I believe it's at least 4 hours, right? So that means you can't run the laundry, you can't get a drink of water, you cannot flush the toilet. You just got to plan for that. And when you're moving and you're in the middle of a transaction, it's really hard to be out of your house for 4 hours. And plumbing. In California, we have this horrible thing called high-tech piping, where these little pinholes, they kind of splash all over the place, and they just kind of bust at the most inappropriate times. And to pipe a whole house, I mean, my husband did one, and I think the biggest one was about maybe 3,700 square feet, and it was, gosh, $40,000. A regular repiping for maybe 2,800 square feet would be about $20,000 to $25,000. So if you have high-tech piping and you have had a leak, or any other kind of piping that has had a leak, you have to disclose it. And if you think, oh, you know, I'm not going to fix it, you know, it hasn't leaked in a long time, just disclose it, because you don't want that to come back and bite you. So the water heater, usually, you know, there's a date on it and all that good stuff. And then if you have like rust up there, clean it off. It looks disgusting. When people get scared when they see rusty water leaks, right? You know, make sure it's, in California, we would have it strapped in. Here, you know, it's not like a requirement to have your water, you know, we used to have 2 straps on that. But you know what? With all these hurricanes, I don't think it would hurt. You know, you don't want it floating away and like ending up in another room in your house. So with your water heater, you want to make sure that the pilot, you know, is lit. You want to make sure that it's working. And most people have, like, nowadays, tankless water heaters, right? So that's a really good thing. You know, heating, people, believe it or not, they want a heater that works. They want air conditioner that works. I always recommend, before you go on the market, to have an HVAC guy come out and inspect and service. So you can show to the buyer, hey, these have just been serviced. They're good, because they may be old like me, right? They could be 20 years old or more. Well, I wish I was 20 years old. But at least if you say they were serviced, they're functioning, buy the buyer a home warranty, or if you're the buyer, insist on a home warranty, and make sure you add on, there's always like an elevated plan for the ducting, right? Because people say, oh, my air conditioner's covered, and they realize, oh, it's just the unit, it's not all the ducting, and now they can't do the unit unless you upgrade the ducting because it's not up to code. So that's kind of a big deal here, especially in Florida. I mean, I never, ever had my air conditioning on. Never had my air conditioning on as much as I have here. And gosh, God, I love this weather right now. It's October and we have the windows open. Look, I have a jacket on. This is insane. Love it. Just make sure, you know, that you're heating, air. It's kind of important if you're selling a house. Okay, oh, and the other thing is, like I just put in my house, I put a UV light in there inside because believe it or not, you get mold here. You get, like, you know, mildew. because inside the units, I had a client that bought a house, didn't move in for 2 months, and we had it inspected and serviced before. And when she moved in and they took off, you know, it wasn't working, something wasn't pushing air. I opened it up, it was all this black gunk. So a little UV light is $450 per unit. And there's this other thing that they were trying to sell me. It was actually yesterday. It's called a Remy. I call it the Remy Martin. I don't know. I have to do a little more research on it, but that's really like the big daddy of all daddies for air cleaning. And you put one inside each. They quoted me $1,800 for my 2 units. And my husband said no, so I'll have to do it when he goes on a fishing trip. Fireplace. If you go, well, you know what? It didn't work when that's another pet peeve I have. And people go, well, it didn't work when I bought it. Well, why is that okay? Just because it didn't work and you accepted something that didn't work doesn't mean you're buyer. We're in a different market, people. So you realize that buyers are pickier, right? And we're going to be seeing a lot more, especially here in Florida, because of the fact that builders, you could buy a brand new house, right? And not even pay a penny for closing costs. So if they're coming into your house and it's a resale, you have got to up your game. So at the end of the day, you know, do a fireplace inspect. If it's not working, then get it fixed and clean it. If you have a bunch of ashes, that's like gross. You go in there and you see Christmas wrapping paper from, you know, Christmas, which was a year ago, because you haven't cleaned it up. So if you're not a clean person, you got to learn to be a clean person while you're selling your house. Because I'll tell you, nothing offends myself and the buyer more than when you go into somebody's house and the first thing you're like, whoa, you know, Glade plugins everywhere, and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, what are they trying to hide? Then you open up, you know, the refrigerator and it's gross, and you open up drawers, because we're gonna open up drawers in the kitchen. Why are we doing that? Because of the fact we want to see, does it have the rollout drawers? We're gonna open stuff. We're gonna open your closet, your pantry. And if you have a bunch of crap in there, so get all that stuff out. If the cleaner it looks, and if you don't know what clean is, I'm not insulting anybody, but if you think your clean is clean, do not be offended. Go into a model home. Does your home look like a model home? Because it needs to. I understand you're living here. When I walk in this house right now, and this is one of my listings, and it is staged, and it just smells so good. We have this fragrance from Bath and Beauty that I used to use, and then I got one of those really nice infusers, and it's, you know, by Homemedics, and which I got from Costco. I love Costco, by the way. And it just smells so fresh every time I come in here. Bathrooms, just make sure, you know, every toilet, don't be offended, every toilet, if you're over 70 pounds, it's gonna be loose and it's gonna have to be caulked. Make sure your toilets are clean. There's no rings around the toilets. Get a new toilet seat if it's kind of gross, if you have a crocheted cover on it or something like that. And if you have a bathtub with those Jetsons jacuzzi and it doesn't work and it hasn't worked, or if it does work, this is very, very important. I want you to fill up that bathtub, hot water, put a little bleach in there, and then run those jets, because let me tell you, the inspector's gonna do that, and black gunk comes out. And that is like a black gunk bath bomb. It's gross. So you don't want that there while the buyer is there. So make sure you do that if you have a jetted tub. A lot of the diverters on the showers, we have problems with that. So, you know, you don't be surprised to see that you need a new shower diverter. So, or that the hot water and the cold water is reversed, and buyers want you to reverse it back. I just got a request for that today on a property that was inspected yesterday. And then when you look up at the vents, if you look up and you're like, ugh, it's like dirt and it's like black, you know, dust, take it down and clean it. Right? The last thing people want to know is that they're going to suck in dirty air. So clean it. See, it's so funny, you know, I sold my mom's house. Well, I didn't sell my mom's house. I hired somebody and I paid them full price to sell her house because she was a nightmare client. You'll meet my mom. And she kept saying, if it's clean, it will sell. It's clean. And I'm like, oh, really? So you don't think you need to update the countertops? You don't think we need to update anything? The curtains, you think we could just leave everything there? People, they'll walk and go, it's clean. Guess what? The freaking house sold for over asking in like 2 days. So you don't have to update, but it has to be clean. That's from my mother, Shirley. Now I'm at screens, okay? So if you got screens, most of us here don't have screens, right? Make sure your windows work, that they go up and down and that they can lock and that you don't push them up and then they fall down. Make sure they work. If not, I mean, you owe it to your buyer to fix the darn window. If you do have screens, have them all out, so people know you have the screens, because most people keep them in the garage. All your stuff has to be away from the walls. It has to be away from the walls. The inspector has to be able to inspect around it, because when the buyers come to do their walkthrough and all your stuff or crap is out, they're gonna notice things and say, hey, that doesn't look right. So make sure, because the inspector will say it was not able to inspect because it had their personal belongings in there. Just had a house fall out 5 days before we were supposed to close. They were doing their walkthrough and noticed that there was a crunching, something was kind of weird by the sliding door. Well, what happened was, I guess the humidity here in Florida, and this was a 2-week, you're saying, okay, 5 days before closing. So they actually, it wasn't a walkthrough, excuse me, it was an inspection. And we had done an inspection prior, right, which was 3 months ago, because it took my clients 3 months to move out and get ready. And within that 3 months, guess what? Curling happened, where it's a Shaw product, and Shaw used to say, Shaw Flooring, that if it has the felt on the back, you did not need to put a barrier down there. Well, guess what? They changed their song, because my neighbor, just another Mastercraft home, had to move out of her house for 3 weeks because her floors had mold underneath it. And luckily, Mastercraft is one of the best builders. They paid for her hotel, they redid all her floors. So so this just happened, where if you hear like a crunching on it, if you're the original owner, guess what? They send out the floor detective, and this guy is a trip. I'm gonna do a YouTube video with him, and they will absolutely make it right. So we have Shaw Flooring coming out, hopefully to put in a brand new floor. But not my buyers, well, actually they were my buyers, because they didn't have an agent, and since this new law happened, they had me write the offer up. Make sure your fans are working. If you have ceiling fans, if they're not working, take them down. Pool equipment. Okay, we talked about getting a pool inspection. If it's like dripping and it has calcium and you can hear it like that, make sure you have the pool inspector look at it and just take care of it, because I guarantee you, when the other pool inspectors come out, they know that you're against the time frame, and they will charge you a rush fee every single time. Well, if you need this done the next 2 weeks, I'm kind of booked out for the next 2 years, but I can make it happen if you give me an extra $300. Hot tubs, I always say, put in the contract, no value, no warranty, because they will come back at you if for some reason that hot tub doesn't work. And guess what? They usually just break the day after you close doors. Okay, here's the thing. If you have a door and it is a fire barrier, you have to have a fire barrier door into the house, right? And if you put a little doggy door in there, and you have to replace the door. You have to take that out. And at the end of the day, especially here in Florida, I don't like doggy doors, because I've had a couple of little creatures, land up in my house. I have. And it hasn't been fun. You should have heard me scream. So doors, if they're peeling and corroded, because they are a steel door, you need to replace them. If they don't shut, you have to make sure your doors work. It's kind of like one of those things where nobody's gonna go into a house and say, those are fabulous doors, but they will go into a house and go, wow, that door is disgusting and it doesn't close, or it's missing the sweep and it's pitted. So doors are kind of important. Laundry facility, if you're giving a washing machine and dryer, I normally always hold that out and use that as a negotiating tool. But make sure when you have the inspection, you get the laundry out. I can't even tell you how many times I've pulled wet laundry out of the machine, and I don't like looking at your husband's boxers. I really don't, or having your bra or your, bikinis hanging up. I mean, it's like, and then you have to come home and I have them hanging up all over, kind of decorating it. It's embarrassing for you. It's kind of funny for me, but irrigation. So here they do irrigation inspections. That's my last thing. So irrigation, make sure, you know how you find out if you have an irrigation problem? The grass is dead. It's pretty simple. You've got dead grass. At the end of the day, if for any reason, you know, you're seeing patches, you could have, they call them cinch bugs here. And it's funny because the grass here is really weeds in California. It's crab, you know, St. Augustine grass. So it looks like crab grass. But if you have a dead spot like the house I'm in right now, we had to put $4,500 worth of new sod in the front and the back. So I would absolutely tell you, check the irrigation and make sure all the little heads are popping up and all that good stuff. And I think that kind of wraps it up. I know this was a long one, people, but it is kind of important for not just the sellers, but for the buyers. You know, I'm a huge proponent. I'm passionate about getting your home inspections up front. You could save thousands of dollars, but more importantly, you can save the deal. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like what I have to say, I would really appreciate, you know, if you hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to like 10 subscribers. That would be really great for me. So I know this was a lot to take in, a lot. Imagine reading all this, right? And I'm a printer. If I tell you I spend at least $1,200 a month just on printing, because I'm not one of those people that I love to look at everything on a computer. I hate computers, but I use them. But I hope you got something out of it. And at the end of the day, I'm so passionate about being proactive, not reactive. I want to drive the bus or drive the boat or drive the plane. I never want to be a passenger. I never want to be out of control, out of the, you know, with the transaction. So just being proactive, whether it's your health, your house, your happiness, be proactive. You know, don't be afraid of what's going to happen anyway. It's the inevitable. You have a house. I don't care if it's a brand new house. And I'm doing a video on why it's important to do inspections on brand new homes, and you'll be a little bit surprised. But just be proactive and don't be afraid. So hope you enjoyed my video. You know, you could be like my other sellers, where when they're done with this, they take this report and they just go, goodbye, and never think about it again. You be in your new place, it'll be just like a very small memory rather than a nightmare. So hope you had a lot of great information from this. I would love you to subscribe to my station. I'm trying to get 10 followers. That would be amazing. But you know, I've been a real estate coach for, I don't know, the last 5 years. I teach agents, but I love selling homes. I am passionate about listings, passionate about relocation. So if you know anybody that's moving to my area, St. Johns County, please, you know, just give me a call, 904-640-8000. It's an easy phone number. So it's 904-640-8000. I don't care if you're thinking about moving here tomorrow or a year from now. I could be a resource for you, and I would love to help you and your family. So thanks for listening, and all my information is below, and I look forward to our next video. Thanks.